So we're going to start at the back of the grid and work our way up, make some comments on each and every driver. Obviously, Rahal's going to replace Wilson. Wilson was slated to start in the 25th position inside of row 9. What'll happen is they'll bump DeFrancesco up to that spot. Everybody will fill up behind, and Rahal will start 33rd. So let's start with Graham Rahal.
Okay. I think some people might be looking at this as a little bit of an upgrade, because I think that these Dreyer and Reinbold cars have just been faster overall than the Rahal cars have. And it's definitely not the way you want to get into the race, but pretty wild that it just sort of worked out for him like that.
Yeah, Dreyer and Reinbold has actually looked really good in the last couple 500s with Santino getting 10th last year, Sage Karam and I think JR the year before having really good finishes, I think in the top 10. So I think you're right. I think it's an upgrade over the Rahal car, at least as far as one lap speed. I wonder if it feels different, to jump into somebody else's car, different engine. I mean, he is going to get practice time on Friday. I think it's going to be all good for Rahal, man. I think he's going to get comfortable real fast. And he's been great here. I mean, he almost won the thing the year, was it 2 years ago, or was it
yeah, it was 2021, when the wheel came off, and he was looking real fast. He had more fuel than anybody else, and he said in his post-race interview he really felt like he was going to win that race.
Well, it did look like it definitely looked like he was going to have a damn good opportunity. So he can do it. We know that. Let's move on up.
Well, we should also just say real quick that for Stefan Wilson, man, I mean, that's got to be just heartbreaking to get that close to another start in the Indy 500 and then second to last practice, qualify for the race and everything, and then take a nasty hit like that and get hurt and have to sit out.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing he could do about that. He was along for the ride. So that is unfortunate, but I'm sure he'll be back. Good thing it wasn't any more serious than that. But yeah, that's a tough one. All the work that he's putting that program together, not to mention, getting the car up to speed and putting it in the race. So yeah, hats off to Stefan. But Rahal's going to give it a good ride. That's for sure. Jack Harvey's going to be the middle of the 11th row. Again, in the Rahal car, they definitely had problems putting no toe laps together. What they needed in qualifying with the boost and whatever trim, they just didn't have it. I mean, he had enough to get in the race, but barely. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be comfortable in race conditions. I just don't think that it's going to be enough to get them up near the front. I mean, I think they're going to be stuck back half.
Yeah, and for Stingray Robb, I was actually a little surprised that he was one of the guys who wound up in the bottom 4 on Sunday and had to bump his way in, because I thought he's looked pretty good all month. I do think, though, just based off of talking to Santino, talking to Matt Brabham, and just listening to interviews from other drivers, there is a lot for a rookie to take in this race. It's just so unique and so different from anything else that these guys do that, I think he's going to do just fine. I think he's going to do well, actually, but I think it's going to be probably a steep learning curve once you get into it, and it's a long race. I mean, I don't know that he's ever done a 500-mile race before.
I would guess no way. I mean, he's only 21 years old. These rookies now, I mean, they come in and they look so well prepared, but man, they're young. I mean, he's 21 years old, and he won one of the championships on the way up the road to Indy. He won a lights race last year, was a runner-up in Indy Lights, so he's definitely proven to be fast. But this will be a good experience for him.
Yeah, so then on row 10, we've got R.C. Enerson, Catherine Legg, and Christian Lundgaard.
Yeah, let's start with Lundgaard again, another RLL car that's struggled with the boost and qualifying trim, but doesn't mean they're going to not be comfortable in the race. And we after watching a lot of practice, it looks like a real draft heavy race. The cars seem to really want to stick together. I mean, guys would come out of the pits and be 50 yards, 100 yards behind, or more, well more behind the pack, and just kind of close right up. So you don't really need straight line speed, I don't think, to stay in the train. Getting around guys is going to be different, but if you're in that big train and have good pit stops, don't make any mistakes, you can move up that way. So yeah, I don't think the qualifying issues for RLL are going to be as severe of a handicap in race conditions.
Yeah, so I think that would go for that would apply to Catherine Legg as well. It's been interesting to watch her in practice. Definitely noticed her, line looking a little different at times, maybe earlier in the week, shifting in places where other people weren't. I think it's tough to jump in the car like this after being away for, I think it's been about 10 years. And it's the same chassis, but completely different aerodynamics and everything. It's probably feels very different than what she drove 10 years ago. So, so it would be interesting to see how she does.
Well, she was definitely good, out there by herself. She could keep her foot planted. It's not like she didn't have guts to get out there, and she was the fastest of the 4 RLL cars. In traffic, we'll see. Like you said, it's been 10 years. So, yeah.
Yep. And then for RC and the Able Motorsports team, I would say just psyched to see these guys in the race. It's always nice to see a new team get in. And, I hope it pays them well,
Yeah, I was really psyched to see him get in. They worked hard at it, put their program together with what used to be, what was the team that RC brought 2 years ago?
Top
Gun, right. And really, dug a little deeper with the car to make sure they had Indianapolis type speed, and it paid off for him. And RC's been, he hasn't been in that many IndyCar races, but over the years he's done a few one-offs here and there. I probably should look up the record, but I remember him doing very well at Road America. At Mid-Ohio. It's probably been 4 or 5 years, but every time he's gotten an IndyCar, he's looked pretty good. So I think he'll do just fine.
All right, row 9, inside Devlin DiFrancesco, middle Augustine Canapino, outside Callum Ilott.
Yeah, the two Juncos guys starting right next to each other, and a little bit of a struggle for them too. Augustine Canapino seemed to get it going a little bit easier than Ilott did. Ilott, had all these issues with the chassis and just wasn't comfortable for whatever reason, but finally, found the speed he needed. And again, I expect that he'll be feeling, a little more racy in race trim than, single car qualifying. So that'll be tough, but Canapino, man, he just continues to impress. At practice, he was just pounding around, just looking great. And, don't know what to expect there. Who knows what these guys' goals are for this race? Probably not realistically to win, but I'm sure they're eyeing top 10s.
Yeah.
And I would say the two Juncos guys, I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and then DiFrancesco is behind his teammates, but not far. He's got Marco in the row right ahead of him. I think 25th is about where he started last year. Looks like he started 24th and wound up 20th. So, I don't really expect anything flashy out of him.
I think I don't know. I'm with you. Flashy, probably not flashy, but I expect a steady race, and being an Andretti car, even though they haven't showed particularly well yet this month, he could end up with a good finish.
Yep. So that brings us to row 8 then, with Simon Pagenaud, David Malukas, Marco Andretti.
I don't know what's going on with Meyer Shank. They just don't seem to have, just 2 years removed from a win, but they just don't seem to be on pace. Again, they're closely tied with Andretti. I think they share the same damper program. And so maybe that's where the problems lie, because you don't see, any of the Andrettis up very high either. So, but we know, being a previous winner, we know Pagenaud can do it, but I really don't expect the Meyer Shank cars to get up close enough to contend for the win.
Yeah, I would say Marco also in the Andretti's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Truthfully, I kind of forgot he was even entered in this race. I feel like we've just barely heard anything about him. The focus has definitely been a little bit more on Colton Herta, Romain Grosjean, and Kyle Kirkwood. So, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like he's been pretty frustrated with the lack of pace in that car. We'll just have to see what happens on race day. And then Malukas, I think, really impressed me in this race last year. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I remember him looking real good. He's definitely mired back there a little bit. He's rolling off 23rd, but I'm always excited to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, he's very smooth. He had a good race last year. I mean, we sort of argued that he had earned the Rookie of the Year last year at the 500. He had an amazing race at St. Louis. We were there, and he ended up in second place, kind of chasing, I think it was Newgarden, chasing him down at the end, and was a close second. So, yeah, when things are when he's hooked up, he can go. I mean, it's starting pretty deep in the field, but and I think a win would be a long shot, like a real long shot. But I don't know. I think almost everybody in this race has a chance to win. I don't think everybody, but I would say Malukas is one of the guys that I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough call.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough call.
Yeah.
And I saw a stat that I think was like, it was, in the last 24 years, nobody's won from a starting position lower than 19th. And we're still talking about row 8, which is 22, 23, 24. So, it's not likely.
That's true.
Historically speaking.
And the grid now is based purely on speed. In the olden days, they gridded them differently. A first day qualifier started ahead of a second day qualifier, ahead of a third, regardless of their speed. So you could have a third day qualifier. In fact, it happened numerous times where the third day, the second weekend, they set the fastest time of the whole field, and they're starting all the way back there. So they actually, had a legit chance to win. But I think you're right. I think it's very, very unlikely. I wouldn't, maybe even impossible.
Yeah. I would say that about row 7 too, which is Grosjean, Castroneves, and Herta. Obviously, Castroneves, 4-time winner and wildly popular driver. The place would just go nuts if he gets number 5. But with Pagenaud, we talked about Meyer Shank kind of struggling. I don't really see it happening, truthfully. I think Herta's probably been the most talked about of the Andretti's in terms of just pace. I think he'll go forward. I don't necessarily see him getting all the way up to the lead, although you never really know. And then this is actually a really interesting row because on the inside of both those guys is Grosjean, who just in practice has looked both fast and aggressive. He doesn't like to concede position even when we're just running around in practice. This will be a row to watch coming to the green flag.
Yeah, he had put himself, I can't remember the exact situation last year, he had put himself in contention and then, spun coming out of turn 2 like a lot of other people did and took himself out of the race, but looked good last year. I don't know, to say that these 3 guys, do you think it's impossible that they win? It's Grosjean, Castroneves, and Colton Herta. I mean, coming into May, you would have thought all 3 of those guys had a pretty damn good chance, right?
That's true. It's very true.
So, and you never know, right? Race conditions, if there's some funky yellow or people get taken out somehow, I mean, anything can happen. But they're going to need some sort of a shuffle, I think, to help them get up to the front.
Yeah, that's
probably
true.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to take a little bit of a shuffle. I think, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Row 6, Connor Daly on the inside, Joseph Newgarden in the middle, Ryan Hunter-Reay on the outside.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay, I think, has looked really good in that Dreyer and Reinbold car. It's actually kind of hard to spot because it looks a lot like Callum Ilot's car. It's just black with little green highlights on it. But he's looked really fast. He's looked great in the packs. He's able to pass. Been really impressed with him. Newgarden starting in the middle of this row. Again, it just seems like the Penske's, for whatever reason, have had a tough time qualifying for this race in the past couple of years. And it just sets them back on race day. It makes it tougher to get to the front. I don't know if it's indicative of just lack of pace or if it's just lack of clean air pace, qualifying pace, whatever it may be. But it's a little surprising to see Newgarden start all the way back there. But, he's a great driver. And I don't know. I think he's 4-1 for a top 3 finish, which isn't a terrible bet, honestly.
Yeah, he's 14-1 to win it. the Penske's, like you said, they haven't qualified well. They really haven't challenged that I remember in the last couple of years at the top of the field. I mean, Pagenaud did come charging back, I think, and got a third a couple of years ago late in the race. But yeah, I mean, a win could be a tall order, but yeah, I mean, you like that one, huh? 4-1 to get a top 3.
Well, I'll say this about him. I think he's just really, really good. Even without outright pace, I think he's really good at just maximizing an entire race and putting himself in position to win, whether it's just being a little bit easier on tires or stretching fuel a little bit longer, or just doing whatever it takes to gain some sort of advantage should the opportunity present itself. So I think he's going to move up quite a bit in this race.
I mean, and with Penske, the Penske team with Tim Cindric as a strategist, I mean, they've won a lot of races, man. So
I think they're sitting there. They're going into this race game planning. I think they're probably looking at all 5 or 6 stops, whatever they're planning, and they've got it all figured out. How they're going to get to the front, where they're going to be at lap 100, not just position-wise, but on fuel consumption, on tire wear, all that. It's Team Penske. I mean, it's like the class of the field. So again, this is all just to say that Newgarden, I think he's going to move up quite a bit in this race. And 4-1, top 3. It's not bad.
For top 3 and 14-1 for the win. This is on Bovada, where I'm always looking. And like you said, Ryan Hunter-Reay's had this black car all week, but I think that's going to change, right? Because they've got sponsors now, especially with Ray Hall bringing his sponsorship over to the team. I'm not sure how they're going to juggle the sponsorship on Reinbold. It'll be interesting to see who's got what. Maybe Stefan's sponsorship goes over, to the 23. But he has looked really good. He's won this race before, so I like, what's he for a top 5?
He's
7.5 to 1 for a top 5.
Yeah,
that could be.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I might consider that one.
Yeah, I might. I think I'm gonna go ahead and
then
my sheet.
We haven't mentioned Connor Daly. He's always runs well here, or has run many times, at the front. So just didn't. I don't know. His car didn't seem to be as hooked up as Ed's and Rinus VK's. So starting back in the inside of row 6, we'll see what he can do. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he lets it rip in this race for sure. I think there's probably, it's hard to call it an advantage, home field advantage, but I think he definitely feeds off the energy of it a little bit. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now, either a couple days before the race or on their way to the track race day morning, that are going to be cheering for him every time he drives by. So, yeah, we'll see what he can do. I mean, he definitely lets it rip on race day.
Yeah, so on Bovada for the win, he's at 40-1. So if you want to have that lottery ticket, if you're a Connor Daly fan, that would be kind of fun to hold on to. All right, let's move up to row 5. Ed Carpenter on the inside, Scott McLaughlin in the middle, and then Kyle Kirkwood on the outside.
Yeah, so I actually think Kirkwood has looked really, really good. I think he's looked a little bit better than Herta just from the naked eye, watching practice from whatever grandstand vantage point I've been watching from. He's looked good. He's looked smooth. He's looked great in traffic. I've seen him go to the front. I feel like I've seen him swap back and forth and stay at the front. Very, very interested to see what he does on race day.
Yeah, last year he, as a rookie, completed all 200 laps, finished on the lead lap all the way back in 17th place, but he started back in 28th. So, yeah, I mean, sophomore year, he's got the experience under his belt, and I agree, he's looked really good this month. And, why not? He's listed at 25-1 right now to win the thing. And for a top 5, 3.25-1 for a top 5. So 6.5-1 for a top 3. So yeah, I like it.
Yep. So for Scott McLaughlin, he was somebody who going into the month I actually expected to show a little bit better. Again, it's a little surprising to see for a couple years in a row now, Penske just not really having the pace in qualifying. So McLaughlin rolls off 14th. But I mean, if you just think about how he's performed on ovals recently, third at Gateway last year, you know, he was contending for the win for a lot of it. I mean, he's looked amazing at Texas. I thought he's been really good. And the other thing I want to say is he had a pretty nasty hit last year. I mean, he smacked the wall twice. I think he hit turn 3 and then kind of got redirected at an angle that sent him right at the wall in turn 4 without a lot of braking power left in that car. And I kind of hate to say this, but I mean, sometimes I feel like you got to get that out of your system. And, you know, that's a mistake. I mean, I'm sure those hits hurt. And so I think that's a mistake that you probably are a lot less likely to make a second time around, at least, you know, the very next year. So I don't know. I mean, the fact that he's already hit the wall, what I'm trying to say is the fact that he's already hit the wall might work out for him in this race.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see how hitting the wall ever works out in your favor at any time. I mean, I think the way to go is never come close to it. But everybody pretty much has their moments. So, yeah, maybe you're right. It makes him into an instant veteran.
Yeah.
And like Newgarden, he's got the strong team behind him, you know, with all the resources and the expertise. And so, could be. Ed Carpenter on the inside, fan favorite, owner of Carpenter Racing Team. I know most of the people in the crowd are really going to be hoping that he's able to move up to the front.
Yeah, I mean, so Connor Daly's kind of been the local boy who's stolen the spotlight as of the last couple of years. But it feels like Ed's kind of flown under the radar. It's, you know, not unlike the way Castroneves did in 2021, where he wasn't really talked about, but he quietly qualified 13th inside of row 5. That's not too bad. He's looked really fast in practice. All the attention has gone to, it seems like all the attention has gone to Daly or VK, his team cars. So I don't know. I would say watch out for Carpenter. Let's see what he does.
Okay, we're up to row 4 now. Marcus Ericsson, the defending champ, on the inside, and Benjamin Peterson in the middle in the AJ Foyt car, and Will Power on the outside. So, yeah, kind of an interesting lineup there.
Yeah, so Peterson obviously is the big surprise of qualifying, I think. Qualifying that far up and showing as much pace as he's had. Be very curious to see what he does in race conditions. I think, again, like we talked about with Stingray Robb, it's just such a different animal, this race, compared to anything else. I think you have a lot to learn and a lot that you learn just by experience and seat time and everything. So be very curious to see what he does, but he's definitely looked good. I mean, he obviously looked amazing in qualifying. I think he's looked pretty good in race trim too, and it sounds like he's been pretty satisfied with the car. So...
Yeah, he's starting right up there with a bunch of heavy hitters and, you know, just one spot outside of the top 10. I don't really expect him to fight early on for positions. I mean, I think you just, as Santino was saying in the interview, you just ride for a while, you know, until you get to the second half of the race. And you know, I'm sure the game plan is just kind of settle in, slide into the pack, and just start clicking laps away.
Yeah.
I don't think Will Power is going to be that patient, though.
No, I mean, think about the way he started the race last year. He stepped on the gas like a couple seconds earlier than the rest of his row, went all the way around the entire row ahead of him, and then ripped around the outside of the next car in line. This is all before they even got to the short chute between turn 1 and 2, right? He didn't have much of a car last year, but I don't think that's going to be the case again this year. And he's highest qualifier of the Penske's. I think he's probably feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, and he set a burner lap in the Monday practice. I think he was P1 on the charts. So, yeah, in race trim, obviously, the car's good. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good year for Will Power.
Yep, and then Marcus Ericsson, our defending winner from last year, starts on the inside of row 4. He started, so that's 10th place. It looks like he started 5th last year for his win. The way he won the race last year, I mean, he really didn't show his cards until the very, very last fuel stint. And I kind of expect to see the same thing again this year. It's probably just recency bias, but it also just seems like that's kind of the way he drives, is he just puts, you know, if a race is 500 miles long, he'll put all 500 miles together and be there when it counts, you know. So, yeah, so I mean, he obviously looked just lightning fast at the end of that race. Really, really impressive race win last year. So now he comes back as the defending winner, and we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, he defended last year like a madman. It was unbelievable. I don't recall him slicing through the pack so much. I mean, two of his teammates that were contenders both had their own issues. Palou got stuck on a pit cycle that didn't work out. Dixon had the speeding penalty. So, but man, when he was up front at the end, that was some intense defensive. I mean, it wasn't just, I don't want to say defensive as if he was blocking or doing anything like that. It was just...
It's definitely defensive, though.
Yeah,
I mean, he was trying to hold the lead.
Yeah. But, yeah, we'll see. I mean...
Well, he kind of did slice through the field before that yellow because he came out of the pits after their last stop behind Rosenquist, who I think was leading, and O'Ward, who was in second. Right. Passed O'Ward, passed Rosenquist, and then actually started to drive away. And I think had Johnson not crashed and brought out that yellow flag at the end that ultimately led to the late race restart, he may have won the race separated from the pack, which is something that we haven't seen in like 10 years other than when Rossi did it, but that was purely on fuel save.
Yeah, that's a great call. I'd forgotten about that little episode. So you're right. When he needs to get aggressive, he can. And Ganassi cars are good. So, yeah, he's a contender along with Will Power out of that row. I'd say Ben Peterson is a contender for Rookie of the Year. But, outside of that, tough to hang with the big boys up front.
Yeah.
Okay. So, gets us up to row 3.
Yeah.
We've got all of them previous winners. Alexander Rossi on the inside in the number 7 McLaren. Takuma Sato driving the number 11 for Chip Ganassi. And Tony Kanaan driving another McLaren. So, yeah.
Kanaan obviously still got it. I think he finished 3rd last year. He's with a great team. Obviously, it seems like outside of the Ganassis, the McLarens are right there. So, yeah, I think, he's been in a lot of these races. It's pretty well documented that this is going to be his last one, and there's a lot of speculation that he'll be back, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's really approaching this like it's the mindset that it's really, truly going to be his last ride around here. So, I think the place will obviously go berserk if he wins the race. They might burn the whole speedway down.
Yeah. So I always have these visions of Kanaan on restart, the opening lap start and restarts, just ripping it up around the outside, just getting a jump and making spots like that. We'll see if he's still able to do that. I mean, that takes a certain level of aggression and I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he's got to be an old man, obviously, or he wouldn't be talking about this being his last race. So, but, being an old man didn't stop Takuma Sato a couple of years ago or Castro Neves. So, this race is sort of geared to kind of the crafty veterans. It's not that physical, right? It's kind of a thinking man's game and being smooth and staying calm. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd say Kanaan definitely has a chance. Sato definitely has a good chance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think his wins have also been pretty Marcus Ericsson-esque, where he doesn't really show his hand until right at the end of the race. But he's in a Ganassi, which has been the class of the field for a couple years and looks like it's the same thing again. So I really like his chances.
Yeah, I mean, if he can avoid any sort of mishap, pit lane stuff or anything like that, which, I don't see any reason why he couldn't, but there is a little bit of a history of that. But if he can get to the end and be near the front, he's not going to lift, right? He's just going to keep his foot planted. So we've seen that before. And then Rossi on the inside.
Yeah, so Rossi, I think, is an obvious contender to win this race. As far as the McLaren, as far as his teammates go, O'Ward has been the driver that has shown the best in the past couple 500s. I think he was second last year. I think he was 4th the year before that. But Rossi's been in this race. I mean, he's obviously a winner, but he's been in this race a little bit longer. He's got a little bit more experience. He's with a new team. I'm sure he's feeling pretty rejuvenated. and he's had a lot of things not go his way. And so, I think he's due to regress to the mean, which is to be there right at the end, because he's been there for the first half, 3/4 of the race for a couple years now, and has been taken out through, contact in the pits or penalties or crashes or whatever it may be. And, part of me is thinking that all of that is now behind him, and this is the year that he's actually right there when we get to 10 laps to go.
Yeah, well, he finished in 5th last year, he was the highest finishing Andretti car after starting, looks like 20th. So, yeah, he made it to the end and was right up there into the front last year. So, good call. I think you're right. We're up to row 2.
Yeah, so I should say now, rows 1, 2, and 3, these are the real heavy hitters. Probably not a surprising thing to say, but where I was going with that was, in the past 5 years, the winners have come from 5th, 8th, 3rd, 1st, and 3rd. So all within the top 9, all within the first 3 rows. And so if you average that out, it averages out to 5th, which is a Ward who's in car number 5. So I don't know, I think that was worth pointing out. But
odds to win 6.5 to 1. So if you're...
Yeah, it just seems like you look at half this field and you think, that they could win, but these guys are starting at the front for a reason. I mean, they've all been pretty much the fastest all month. They all obviously qualified. They earned those spots. They qualified up there on raw speed. And so, I think these are the guys that are going to stay up there on speed alone, where some of those other guys that we think could win, it might take some sort of shuffle to get them up there.
Well, I like Dixon starting in 6th. He's looked fantastic all month, really dominated the last 2 years and ended up empty-handed. But I just put money on him. He was 8.5 to 1 on Bovada, and he was as low as 7 to 1 after Friday practice. So I don't know what the odds makers saw that they didn't like. I guess starting outside of row 2 or whatever. But I really like Dixon's chances. And then you mentioned O'Ward. We got kind of an outlier, Santino Ferrucci, on the inside. I mean, he's been fast every single day, and he's really, gotten a lot of attention. The fans are all behind him. He's got AJ kind of jacked up, so he's definitely got a chance to win. But he's kind of up here in uncharted water. He's done well every year. He was the rookie of the year his rookie year, but had to come up through the pack and sort of under the radar, ended up with these top 10 finishes in all 4 of his starts. But right now, he's front and center, man. He's on the inside of row 2. And, I don't know what his chances are compared to some of these other guys that are up there. But he's going off at 20 to 1. And I don't know, anything can happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I mean, it would be kind of a miracle, you look at it now, starting on the inside of row 2, it doesn't look that far-fetched, but coming into the month, AJ Foyt, the team just hasn't had the results this year. So you didn't really expect them to come in, and right out of the box, be as fast as they've been. But, Santino's proven that, he's suited to this track, his driving style. So really looking forward to see what he can do and how they, as a team, approach this race.
Yep, I'm totally with you on that. So that brings us to the front row: Alex Palou, Rinus VeeKay, and Felix Rosenqvist.
Yeah, let's start with Rosenqvist. He's looked good all month too. I mean, a front row start. Yeah, I'd say he was a solid contender for the pole. And, I think he's got the tallest odds. Maybe, let me look, compared to Kanaan. I was going to say out of the McLaren boys, he's probably got the tallest odds. You got O'Ward at 6.5 to 1, Rossi's 12 to 1, Rosenqvist 14 to 1. But I want to say that before the month started, before practice 1, he was listed at 33 to 1, and I put a really small bet on him. So I'm kind of liking what I see.
Yeah, he's looked really fast. He's 4th last year. But he's just been really good. He's been right there. I think if he does win this race, it just strikes me as I think it's going to be again, Marcus Ericsson-esque, where I don't think he's going to go out and lead every lap and, make these big crazy passes for the lead or whatever it may be until the very end of the race. I think if he's going to win, he's going to hang around all day, and then he's going to show up when it counts.
Yeah, Rinus VK in the middle. I mean, another unbelievable starting spot. I got to look this up. I think he's got an average starting spot for 4 500s, like right around 3. I mean, he's been up front.
Yeah.
Do you have the stats there?
Yeah, 2020 4th, 2021 3rd, 2022 3rd.
And so now he's 2nd. Yeah, so it's been pretty incredible. And the Carpenter cars have run well. I mean, we saw Daly lead. BK, he was the first one out last year. He got caught out by the tailwind that eventually got a bunch of other guys. But he's looked good here. And, I think he's got a legitimate chance. Another guy who was 33-1 before practice 1, and I put a small bet on him too. He's listed right now at 16-1. I don't know. I mean, Team Carpenter up against the big boys. It's tough call, but
yeah,
he's right there.
I think if he wins, it's going to be not Marcus Ericsson-esque. I think it's going to be more like Simon Pagenaud 2019, where he just wants to be at the front all day. And if somebody passes him for the lead, pass him back. I mean, unless the team is in his ear, like you gotta tuck in and save fuel. I think he's just gonna want to be out front and clean air as much as he can.
Okay, that gets us to our pole sitter, Alex Palou, who is the favorite. He's, I think this is his 4th race at Indy, and this will be his 4th race. And I believe he was 2nd in his 2nd race, right, to Kester Nevis. Last year was right up there. I don't remember exactly. I guess I could get the lap chart, but was right up at the front. Had come in a little bit early for his very first. It might have been the 2nd stop. Either way, he got caught out being in the pits under the yellow and just never able to recover. But I think he's the favorite for a reason, and clearly could win this race. So
yeah, and he's got I think when he wins races, he usually does it. I mean, it seems like of late at least, he does it with just these perfectly timed overcuts, undercuts. He's like he turns it up to 11 at exactly the right time. Meaning when everybody else is out there skating around on cold tires or whatever, he's overcutting on hot tires, and he's saved just a little bit of that tire so that he can do that, so he can make the overcut. So his racecraft, his timing is just shown to be impeccable, and it's a little bit it's kind of a different style of racecraft at Indy. It's more about using the draft and air, right, rather than necessarily conserving tire and fuel and everything. But he's definitely a thinking man's driver, which seems to be what it takes to win at Indy, at least as of late. So he's the favorite for a reason. He's the pole sitter for a reason. And I'm really excited to see what he does come race day.
Yeah, I can't wait for this. This is going to be awesome.